Hello all, welcome back. So today's video we will discuss some important MCQs for all judiciary exams on constitution. So let us start with our first question. Which article of the constitution provides for equal justice and free legal aid? Now whenever you see the words free legal aid, okay, your mind should immediately go to Article 39A. This article says that justice should not only be for rich people, even poor people should get proper legal help. Imagine a person is getting arrested without money to hire a lawyer. If legal help is available only for rich people, then equality before law has no real meaning, right? So that is why the Constitution introduced the Article 39A. And also remember, this article was added through 42nd Amendment. Okay. Now, this is also called as mini constitution. This article, Amendment 42 is. So here the answer is, as we already discussed, Article 39A. The next question is a little tricky. Many students get confused here. The question is asking, under which article was free legal aid recognized as the fundamental right? Now, originally, free legal aid is mentioned under Article 39A, which comes under DPSP, right? Directive Principles of State Policy. But later, Supreme Court connected it with Article 21. Okay? The court said something very important. If a poor person cannot get proper legal help, then the right to life and personal liberty has no real meaning. This was clearly explained in a famous case, Hussaina Khatun, where the Supreme Court connected free legal aid and speedy trial with Article 21. So, originally, though it is written under Article 39A but recognized as the fundamental right in as per Article 21. Okay. Now, this is a very important constitutional law uh, for, I mean, this case law for AIBE and other any judicial exams, right? Whichever you take, the case recognized free legal aid. This case has recognized free legal aid, speedy trial, and delayed justice. Your mind should immediately go to Hussainara Khatun case. In this case, Supreme Court noticed that many poor under trial prisoners were staying in jail for years without proper trial. So some people were spending more time in prison than the actual punishment. Okay. So the court said justice delayed is justice denied. That is why Supreme Court declared that speedy trial and free legal aid are part of Article 21. So whenever you get some question on speedy trial, free legal aid, under trial prisoners, your mind should always think on this case. Which case? Hussein Ara Khatun case. So the answer is B. Now, the examiner is asking the same topic from a different angle, which was considered the first PIL case in India. Once again, the same answer, Husainara Khatun case. That is why this case is extremely important for AIB and judiciary exams. because one single judgment gave many important constitutional principles. Like first, it has recognized as free legal aid. Okay. Next one, speedy trial as a fundamental right. Okay, fundamental right under Article 21. Now, and the third one is this is one of the most famous PIL case. Okay, before PIL, court usually worked only when the affected persons directly approached the court. But PIL made justice easier to reach for poor and helpless people. So whenever we get these three things, PIL, speedy trial, or legal aid, the case is Hussainara Khatun case. So C is the answer here. Now comes one of the most discussed topic in constitutional law, that is uniform civil court. Okay. Now this question is asking which article deals with uniform civil code. Right. Now, in simple words, UCC means one common civil law for all citizens, no matter which religion they belong to. Matters like marriage, divorce, adoption, and inherited would follow one common law instead of different personal laws. Right now, different religions follow different personal laws in these matters. But constitution make us believe India should slowly move toward to one civil system to promote equality and national unity. So that is why Article 44. Okay, Article 44 under Directive Principles talks about uniform civil code. Okay, and here is the simple trick. Just GCC means 44. Okay, just think like that. So whenever you get something around on uniform civil code, common civil law, personal law, just immediately move toward Article 44. So answer is C. Now the next question continues from the previous one. UCC code belongs to which category? Okay. Now, many students get confused between fundamental rights and DPSP. Remember carefully, Uniform Civil Code is not a fundamental right at present. It is placed under DPSP. Okay? It is placed under DPSP. That means it acts as a guideline or a goal for the government. Unlike fundamental rights, DPSP cannot be directly enforced in the courts. But they are still very important because they help the government make laws and policies. Okay. Now, fundamental rights protect citizens directly. DPSP guide the government indirectly. So this is a simple trick to remember. That is why Uniform Civil Code UCC comes under DPSP. Now answer is C. Okay, let's move on now. This is an important environmental law question. Okay, for all judiciary exams. The question is asking which article deals with protection and improvement of environment and wildlife? Okay. Now, whenever you see the words like environment, okay, forest, wildlife, or ecological protection, okay. Now, you should immediately think of Article 48A. Okay. So A for animals. So A for Article 48A. So this is it. The article was added because Constitution recognizes that environmental protection is directly connected with human life. Okay, if air becomes polluted, rivers become dry, or forests disappear, then human survival itself will become difficult. Later, the Supreme Court strengthened this concept through a famous Mr. MC Mehta, we should call him Mr. MC Mehta judgments, and connected clean environmental with Article 21, right to life. Okay, so whenever examiner mentions environment, okay, wildlife or some forest protection, you should always think about Article 48A. So the answer is B. So which amendment inserted Article 48A? Many students get confused with amendment questions because they are many constitutional amendments. But for the judiciary exams, some amendments are very important. One among them is 42nd one. Okay. This amendment is famously called as mini constitution of India because it brought many major constitutional changes. Now, here is a simple shortcut to remember. Articles like 39A, okay, articles like 39A, 48A, and 51A. These are all commonly connected with 42nd Amendment. Okay, so instead of mugging up or randomly, try to remember the pattern. Article 48A, this talks about environment and wildlife protection, which was inserted through 42nd Amendment during emergency period. Therefore, whenever examination asks about Article 48A, you should think of 42nd Amendment. The answer is B here. Now, this question is asking an important concept from constitutional law, right to clean environment. Okay, right to clean environment is considered part of which article? Now, originally the Constitution did not directly say that clean environment is a fundamental right. But later the Supreme Court expanded the meaning of the Article 21 in a very progressive way. Okay. The court said right to life does not mean only physical survival. It also means living with dignity, good health, safe surroundings. Okay. Think practically for a moment. If air becomes polluted, water becomes dry, and environment becomes unsafe, then human life itself becomes difficult, right? So that is why the Supreme Court connected environmental protection with Article 21 through famous MC Mehta judgments. Okay. So whenever any question arises on clean environment, pollution free life, or environmental free, you should always think of Article 21. See. Now let us move to one another important constitutional law topic. Okay, fundamental duties. The question is asking how many fundamental duties are there at present. Okay, now many students simply mug up the answer, but if you understand the background, it becomes very easy to remember. Originally, the Constitution came into force in 1950, right? There were no fundamental duties at all. Later, the government felt that citizens should not only enjoy the rights but also perform duties towards the nation. That is why fundamental duties were added through 42nd Amendment. Okay, initially there were 10 fundamental duties. Later, one more duty related to children education. Okay, children education was added through 86th Amendment. So, how many are there now? Total 11. So, there are total 11 number of fundamental duties. Okay. Now, next question continues from our previous topic. Which amendment inserted fundamental duties into Constitution? Okay, this is one of the most important amendment questions for this judiciary exams or AIBE, LLB. The answer is 42nd Amendment. Okay, which is also called as mini constitution for India because it brought many major constitutional changes. Before this amendment, the constitution mainly focused on fundamental rights, but later the government believed that citizens should not only demand rights from the country, they should perform certain duties, right? That is why fundamental duties were introduced through 42nd Amendment. And this is very important, exam connection. 42nd Amendment, okay, fundamental duties and mini constitution. Okay, so all are connected together. So whenever you get an examination ask about insertion of fundamental duties, you should always think of 42nd Amendment. Okay, option B. Now, examiner is asking another question, uh, another important question. Let us say Amendment 1. Which amendment added one extra fundamental duty? We already discussed, but still. As we initially, there were only 10 fundamental duties in the Constitution. Later, one more was added through 86th Amendment. Okay, 10 duties initially, later, one was added through 86. This amendment is also very important because it strengthened the concept of education, right, in constitution law. It added Article 21A. This added Article 21, which talks about right to education. At the same time, it also added fundamental duty for parents and guardians to provide educational opportunities to whom? To children. Ante manamu. Okay. So this amendment became important for right to education, fundamental duties, and education reforms. So simple trick ఏంటంటే education reforms thing, education reforms అనగానే 86th amendment. You should always think on this. D. Now, let us move to one of the most important constitutional borrowing questions for AIBE and other judiciary exams. From where did India borrow the concept of fundamental duties? Indian constitution borrowed many ideas from different countries. For example, fundamental rights from US, parliamentary system from UK, okay, and DPSP from Ireland. Similarly, the concept of fundamental duties was brought from USSR, okay, Union of Soviet Social Republics. The Soviet system strongly focused on disciplinary responsibility and duties towards the nation. That is why India adopted this concept later through constitutional amendment. So here is a simple memory trick. Strong discipline model, Soviet model. Halas. So whenever examiner is asked about fundamental duties, constitutional or constitutional borrowing, you should always think of USSR. Okay, so this is the answer. Now, examiner is asking a direct article based constitutional law question here. Which article contains fundamental duties? Now, many students get confused between Article 51, okay, and Article 51, sorry, 51 and Article 51A. Because both numbers look similar, but remember carefully, fundamental duties are mentioned in Article 51A. Simple trick, duties need action. Therefore, 51 has this action A. The letter A is also important for many articles added through 42nd Amendment. Okay. Another easy way to remember fundamental rights are in part 3, director principles in part 4, and fundamental duties are in part 4A. So, whenever you get a question like this, fundamental duty, think of 51A. C is the answer. Now, let us. This is one of the most common trap question in constitutional law. Who is the head of state in India? Many students get confused here because they think Prime Minister runs the government, right? So PM must be the head of the state. But Constitution makes clear distinction between head of state and head of government. Okay, president is called the head of state. Okay, and uh, president this the state because the president represents the nation constitutionally and holds the highest constitutional office in India. Prime Minister, on the other hand, is the head of government because real executive powers are exercised through the PM and Council of Ministers. Okay, so therefore, the simple here answer is B, head of state. Next one. This question is exactly opposite to the previous one. Many students get confused between this. Now, who is the head of government in India? Remember carefully, President is the constitutional head, but Prime Minister is the head of the government. I just gave the complete information on this. So, head of government is Prime Minister. Okay. Now, let us move to another important question. This is Parliament of India consists of what? Okay, I think this is a very simple question which anybody can answer here, right? So, this consists of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and President. Uh, I can give some short note on this, but this is very simple, straight question. So I am giving you a simple, straight answer also. D. President, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Right. All three becomes the, I mean, consists of Parliament. Now, the next question will be who administrates the oath to Prime Minister of India? If you understand the constitutional hierarchy properly, the question becomes very easy. President of head, President is the head of the state, while Prime Minister is the head of the government. Constitution gives the President to the authority to administer the oath to PM and other unions. That is why after elections, when a new government is formed, President officially administrates the oath of office and secrecy to the Prime Minister. This is an important constitutional process because only after taking oath can the Prime Minister officially start performing constitutional duties. So, head of state gives oath to head of government, ante Prime Minister. Now, this is asking a direct article based constitutional law question. Which article deals with oath or affirmation by the president? So the correct answer is Article 60. Now, this article talks about oath taken by the president before entering the office. During the oath, the president promises to preserve, protection, and defend the Constitution of India. So this is not just a formal ceremony, it is a very important constitutional responsibility because the president becomes the constitutional head of the state after taking his oath. So president oath is Article 60. Okay. Now let's move to the final question. This is an important constitutional law question for AIBE exams. Who administrates the oath to President of India? The answer is Chief Justice of India. According to the Constitution, the Chief Justice of India administrates the oath to the President before entering the office. And if the Chief Justice is unavailable, then senior most judge, okay, of Supreme Court can administrate the oath. So this process shows the constitutional balance and respect between different organs of the government. So Prime Minister takes oath from President takes oath from Chief Justice. Therefore, the answer is Chief Justice of India. So this is all for today, and we have covered the most important 20 questions from our Constitution. Anything else, please comment and let me know in the comment section. Class.